Hello and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television. This is where we discuss front row issues in the Nigerian economic space. And of course, we bring you update from the world of business, investment, finance, and the stock market is not left out. I am your host, Christiana Amodu Otinya. Thank you for joining in on the program today. First, let's take the headlines for today. Trade Minister receives draft copy of Nigeria's trade policy. IMF urged Nigeria to tackle inflation through clear policy decisions. Now we'll take a short breather. When we return, it will be time to delve into the equities market watch. Please stay. Welcome back. Now let's go straight into the equities market segment of the program. We'll begin from the local buzz in Nigeria, talking about the Nigeria Exchange. Now the first trading session of the week on the Nigeria Exchange was largely in positive zone. Now the all-share index was up 0.45%. Looking at the numbers we have from the Nigeria Exchange. Now we saw that positive close for the Nigeria Exchange. To begin the week, definitely positive. Now moving on to other parts of Africa, talking about other bourses in Africa. The JSE, talking about the Johannesburg Securities Exchange, the largest exchange in Africa, was up 1.09% at 64,958. Now we'll just take a pause, and when we return, the equities market segment will continue. Stay with us. Now let's continue to give you update from the equities market. We move now to European markets. Now European markets were slightly lower Wednesday, although we are seeing all the markets staying in negative territory, from the FTSE 100 in the UK to the CAC 40 in France and the German DAX down 0.40%. And these markets are largely monitoring what's happening in the front of interest rate, what's happening with central bankers. Now that's really impacting markets. Also, the annual meetings between the World Bank and the IMF is currently ongoing. Updates are coming in from then, and investors are also watching those updates. Let's move on to Asia Pacific markets. Now markets were mixed Wednesday, with some indexes struggling for direction amid concerns over the global economy. Now the Nikkei 225 in Japan was down marginally 0.02%. In mainland China, the Shanghai Composite was up 1.53% at 3,025.51, and in the Kospi in South Korea climbed 0.47% at 2,202.4. So these markets are indeed monitoring what's happening, especially in the U.S. Strait. We expect the head of the Fed in the U.S., Jerome Powell, to also speak. We expect minutes from the FMOC in the U.S. to come out also. Inflation numbers from the U.S. are also in focus for markets. Now let's move on to commodity prices and see what's happening on that strait. Now the board here is largely mixed. For Brent crude, which is the international benchmark for crude oil, Brent crude is trading at $94.21 per barrel, down 0.10%. For the yellow metal gold, talking about the metal industry, there's a climb there, 0.18% at $1,600 per ounce. That's for gold. For silver, $19.15, down 0.19%. Now for agro-commodities, we have 2 reds and 1 green there. So wheat is staying largely bearish. Cocoa is also staying bearish today. Wheat is down 0.55% and cocoa is down 0.47% at $2,347 per metric ton. So the table is mixed and markets are indeed looking at the global economy. Also, concerns have been raised around COVID-19 in the Asian region, and that is also impacting markets. Our focus on the program today is, of course, the oil sector. Why is Nigeria not reaping so much from the boom we have seen in Brent crude, which is the international benchmark for crude oil? There's the West Texas Intermediate crude, that's for the US. So those are 2 major benchmarks for oil. Let's go to the crypto market now. Of course, a lot of people are investing in this market, although issues have been raised around regulation of this market in Nigeria by, of course, the central bank, the SEC. We have seen concerns raised, and this is in turn to protect investors in this market. Bitcoin is trading at $19,109, up 0.47%. Ethereum, $1,294, up 0.97%. And Binance is doing $271. Now, crypto prices have remained depressed with Bitcoin off its all-time high. There was a point Bitcoin hit as high as $60,000. The market was bullishly bullish, but now we have seen that price drop to around $19,000. Some said it was a bubble that was going to go up, but we're seeing the price coming down, and we're seeing whale movements in that market affecting what's happening in the crypto watch for you. Now, those are the numbers we have to crunch for you today. But before we go on a short break, let's quickly take the business roundup. Now we begin by telling you the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Adeniyi, on Tuesday in Abuja received a draft copy of the revised trade policy of Nigeria 2023 to 2027. Adebayo said that since the extant trade policy was promulgated in 2002, both Nigeria and the world have witnessed major developments. According to him, this includes the explosion of e-commerce and digital payments, the agreement of establishing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and the withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union. That's talking about Brexit. Now, the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, has advised Nigeria and other countries to make clear policy decisions for price stability amid rising inflationary pressures. The Bretton Woods Institution said Nigeria's inflation rate would moderate to 19% this year and drop to 17% in 2023, reflecting on the monetary policy actions of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The institution said this on Tuesday at its headquarters in Washington while unveiling the October 2022 Global Financial Stability Report, Financial Stability in New High Inflation Environment. And that's all we have for you for the business roundup on the program today. Like I mentioned earlier, the focus on the program today will be on the oil sector. We've seen a lot of discoveries come out from that sector. The GCEO of the NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, also made a very huge discovery sometime last week, talking about the 4-kilometer pipeline that has existed for 9 years, and also ending the scourge that is oil theft in Nigeria. We're seeing a lot of economic sabotage happening around that sector. How can the country get it right, and how can we ensure that dividends from that sector, Nigerians enjoy these dividends, and the economy, of course, boom from the prices we are seeing for oil in the international market? We'll take a short break. When we return, you get to meet my guest, and the conversation segment will kickstart. Please stay. Welcome back, and thank you for still staying there with us on the program. This is still Business Daily, coming to you from Trust Television. It's time to kickstart the conversation of today. I have my guest with me in the studio. He's Olabode Showumi, an energy consultant, and of course, a major player that has monitored the sector for some time. Now, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be back
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for always obliging us, of course, to come on Business Daily. Now, we've seen what has the situation that has played out in the Nigeria's oil and gas sector. We've monitored the whole process till it culminated with one of the biggest discoveries, if we call it that way, we saw recently by the NNPC Limited, talking about the 4-kilometer pipeline. Previously, we saw that it was on Focados, and now the GCEO is saying it's on Trans-Escravos. Now, I want you to speak to these developments. Some have opined that Nigeria might be paying the price of a long streak of inaction.
Well, I think that is right to some extent, but inaction in a different dimension. I think one of the things that the civil society and the media actually owes is what they call eyewitness report. So I think by right, the media can actually request to visit those sites. So there are the joint patrol security patrol teams that visit there. It would be nice to be part of one of those things. And you can request actually from the NNPC to be there because it's your right. That way, you are able to actually tell us whether it was Focados or not. I mean, the things are there.
Yeah.
But having said that, the nature of those activities and the theft is such that it is impossible for them not to know. So we are talking about fluid flow now. So this is now basic science. And the best way to explain it is to say you have a hose that goes into your garden for water. And that hose is supposed to wash the car, water the flowers and all that. And it moves at a certain speed, at certain quantum of water coming in. Once there is a leakage, I mean, normally you will know. I mean, this is even by just mere observation. So usually people will check, they will see somewhere it's leaking. Now imagine if somebody was actually sucking out of that. You will know. So one of the best ways to actually look at it will be to look at the security report of the joint venture companies for which they have been submitting over the years. They are briefings. And because NNPC has 50% shares in it, or even if they have 1% shares, that means that is Nigeria's interest there. And by virtue of that, and by virtue of the Freedom of Information Bill, you are obligated and you can find out from those security reports. So from those security reports, you could find out that if those things have actually been reported 9 years ago, or they were reported much longer. So these are things that we all owe each other as stakeholders to get to the root of the matter. But more importantly than even the discovery itself is that there must be consequence. The truth be told is that if there's no consequence for all the chain of actions and those who have done all these things, we will make all this very loud noise, we will scream, blue mother, and now we are surprised. And 1.5 years down the line, somebody else will start it again because after all, everybody doing it gets away.
I was watching an interview of a renowned professor of petroleum engineering. He has been in the sector for close to 40 years. And looking at the video of the NNPC, it was posted on the NNPC official Twitter handle, the video of the surveillance that was done by the GCEO and Nigeria's military of that pipeline now. We've had people alluding to the fact that this is a cartel that is operating. This is a syndicate that is operating. I want to have your thoughts on that. How can, if this is a syndicate that is operating, how then can this be addressed? What measures? Because you spoke about consequences.
Yes, I mean, that's not totally new. I think it was at a conference earlier in the year.
Yes.
Where the MD of Chevron mentioned that oil theft in Nigeria is organized crime. So there is no doubt whatsoever to people who are in the industry that this is systematic and systemic. Systematic in the sense that it engages the system. I mean, systemic in the sense that people are planted in different areas. When you have such a situation, which can happen anywhere in the world, I mean, there was a case, not just one, 2 or 3 cases that I know in the US where a whole police department were found to be compromised. Some were compromised with organized crime, some were compromised. And what they basically did is that they did a commission of inquiry. So they brought people from outside, in some cases headed by a judge or a retired judge, put some knowledgeable people and interview people across board. And on the basis of that, submit a report to the president, who now takes action. So the issue is this: even if we are to get an independent commission of inquiry, which is very possible, and they investigate, which is most probable, and they find out who and who is guilty, which is definite, because there are reports, there are people to be interviewed, they will definitely find out all the people that are culpable. The question now is this: does the presidency, does the leadership have the political will to do it? Because yes, we can say there's criminality going on, that is on one side, but do we really want change?
When you say political will, Bode, I want to understand, because we are saying a situation is bad and we are saying we want consequences, and you're saying if we are going to see some level of political will, shouldn't the onus lie then with the leaders in that sector to ensure that those responsible, the culprits, are brought to book?
So we're moving out of oil and gas terrain now, but I'll try and explain some things to the level of which I understand it. So democracy works by institutions. So you're supposed to have a justice system, which is headed by the courts, which is an institution. You're supposed to have the military as an institution. You're supposed to have the police. You're supposed to have, all those things. And those institutions are supposed to operate independent of personalities, independent of the presidency. And those institutions operating independently is actually what creates the checks and balance in a democracy. So in young democracies, or in democracies that have not matured, like such as ours, you find out that those institutions may not be as independent as they should be, and in which case they operate according to the personality who is the head of the place, rather than having customs and culture of their own independent. So when the institutions or the head of the institutions who now determine the color and the character of those institutions are compromised, then there's a systemic problem. So what we are talking about now is such that there are too many factors that are compromised. There is no way under heaven that a 4-kilometer pipeline can be built without the Navy knowing about it. Or at least some people, maybe the Navy may not know. I mean, I cannot speak for them, to be honest. But they may not know and all that. But there is no way, with the engineering work that will be done, with the construction, with the blasting, with the noise, with the planting of, certain people must know. There's no way about it. So if certain people who are surrounding these places, you understand, are not actually able to do the work that they should do, it speaks to questions that need to be asked. Is it possible that certain people along the line are compromised? Is it possible? So we have certain things where we talk about systemic and system issues. So it takes a man with a heart and a will of steel to ensure that it is done. That will is the political will. The fact that the factors and the tips are known does not mean we as Nigerians have the capacity to ensure that justice is served. Because in this case, it's not easy to serve justice. Anybody thinking that it's a case of like a common man stealing a couple of oranges in the market is living in La La Land. And this is not about questioning them, but it's just the fact that the issue is systemic. All the factors and the levers that are supposed to pull are one way or the other culpable.
Speaking about the Navy, sometime last week we had representative directors of information of the Navy, because you spoke about the media also playing a role in the process of course, making things better and ensuring we dig deep into what's happening with the oil theft situation. We had them visit the Media Trust Group, also seeking partnership on how to end oil theft in Nigeria. Let's take a listen to that report.
Commodore Adedotun Olukayode says the Nigerian Navy is fully committed to the fight against oil theft and bunkering in the Niger Delta, pointing out that operations like Dakata Dabarau have yielded positive results. While emphasizing the importance of the media in the fight against insurgency in the country, the Navy Information Director said the visit to Media Trust was on the instance of the Chief of Naval Staff, and it aims to strengthen the relationship between the armed forces and the mainstream media.
With respect to the use of the media, social media, internet, online space, the virtual space for dissemination of information, we do that to a large extent. I know that the only restriction which was imposed by the Defense Headquarters was operational and combat related information, particularly as relating the anti-insurgency, anti-terrorism fight in the Northeast, because they discovered that the adversary also was using the platform for their good against us. There is that restriction for operations. But in the service, we put everything that happens that is not classified online.
Responding, Media Trust Group Chief Executive Officer Munir Gwarzo appreciated the Nigerian Navy for the visit, saying that further avenues of collaboration between Media Trust and the Nigerian Navy in particular will be explored.
At Media Trust, we are committed in supporting the Nigerian military, as I said, and we are committed at partnering with you. That's why we have various platforms. Traditionally, we've been known to be a newspaper company, Daily Trust. It's been in existence for the last 23 years. I believe if there's any credible newspaper in Nigeria, if you are to count two, Daily Trust certainly will be part of it. But because we have to also change to meet the dynamics of the century, so we now set up the Trust TV, which is 1 year old today. And we also have the digital, because we're in a digital age now.
Commodore Adetotun Oilukayode took over as Director of Information for the Nigerian Navy early this year, and until his appointment, he was the Commandant, Nigerian Naval College, ONE.
Welcome back. There we've seen partnerships, because just like Bode stated, there's a need for partnership to ensure that we get the right information out there. Now, I want you to also speak to an issue that I have seen trending or come up around this conversation of oil theft and also the discovery of the 4 kilometers pipeline. Now, the illegal vessel that was seized, we saw the vessel go up in flames. It was burnt, actually, and reactions have trailed that should these vessels be burnt? Isn't this vessel evidence? I want to have your thoughts on that whole scenario.
Well, that goes a bit above my pay grade, but this much I can say. Somebody needs to explain why the train is burned. To put it in perspective, a VLC, very large carrier, is actually the size of a football field. So you can imagine the amount of crude and the time it would take for you to pump crude, for you to fill it. So if crude of that dimension had entered into a carrier, where did it enter from? That's where the investigations begin. Yeah. And then were those who were monitoring the vessels, were people on board when the fire broke out, when it was seized, what was the situation? You know, the questions need to be asked. I think part of the issues is that questions are not asked. And we just take the news. But once people begin to ask questions, because this is an obvious case, it's just to ask questions and knock on the door a little bit, the door will open. So we cannot speak to what we don't know. Yes. We can speak to what we know. But if what we know does not add up, we can ask questions. And it is in the process of asking questions we will be able to get information that we add up and answer the real case. I want you, in just 1 minute, I want you to speak to what does this mean for the investment picture into the sector, the oil and gas sector, talking about these discoveries, how these discoveries will be handled. What's the picture is painting for investment? Not much. It doesn't matter so much. You know, we need to understand that all over the world, there is illegal oil. And that's one area no government has been able to solve. So, I mean, as big as the US is with the CIA and the FBI and border control and all that, they've not been able to end illegal drugs, illegal diamonds, and illegal crude. But why our own is such a complicated case is that it seems that elements of state are conniving to ensure that there is theft. That is why it is affecting the economy. Otherwise, 1 or 2 cases of illegal crude is neither here nor there. But now that it is becoming a system to the extent that the crude that is stolen is more than the crude that goes into the state, that is why there's an issue.
Thank you so much, Olabode Sowunmi. Thank you for coming on the program and lending your thoughts to how the challenge of oil theft can be ended in Nigeria. Like Body have rightly spoken, it is important, pertinent at this point that the political will comes up and this menace is nipped in the bud. So a lot of dividends that come out from that sector can trickle down into the nation's economic coffers. That's why we draw the curtains for the program today. Thank you for investing your time with us on the program. Don't forget you can catch up on all you need to know, updates in the polity, updates in the world of business on our social media platforms. I am your host, Christiana Amodu Otinya. Have a great day ahead.